Boy, this is an exciting segment for me especially. Our guests on this segment are a fellow by the name of John Smith, who's going to talk to Sam Jones. John attended the opening of the Will Rogers Museum in 1938. And we got Tad Jones, who's the museum director. And guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, we're taping this November 2 because you got big doings coming up at the Will Rogers Museum. Tad, what's going on and why?
Well, Will Rogers was born on November 4th in 1879, so this is his 138th birthday. And so every year for I don't know how many years we've been having Will Rogers birthday events, Will Rogers Days, and this year is the Will Rogers Birthday Bash. We're having parties. Matter of fact, today we had probably 450 kids at the museum from 10 in the morning till about 2 o'clock and just going through all kinds of activities, learning about Will Rogers. And then on Saturday, we're just going to have all kinds of birthday events, from the annual parade that we have, the wreath-laying ceremony with the Pocahontas Club, and then a birthday bash party that everybody can come to, and there's free cake. And who doesn't love free cake?
Wait a minute, free cake?
Free cake. It's going to be at the Claremore Museum of History is where they're going to have that.
That's a ticket to get in back in 1938. And these are some of the things that you'll find there.
Yep, the birthday bash, those are the presents. We're going to give presents out to a bunch of kids. If you come to the parade on Saturday, which is 11 o'clock, we're going to give out 500 birthday cards from Will, because Will was a great humanitarian. He would have a pocket full of money. He'd go out and give it to kids and other people. And we're going to give out 500 birthday cards to kids at the parade. 100 of those are going to have a special prize that they can pick up at the birthday bash. And when they pick up their car, a special gift there, one of them could even be a $200 gift certificate to Walmart, but the rest will be some great prizes for the kids to play with. And that's Will Rogers' great-granddaughter, Jennifer Rogers Echeverry. She'll be in town for the festivities as well. Car show at the museum on Saturday from 9:30 to 11, so there's a lot. And there's the Pocahontas Club. They do, the Cherokee Pocahontas Club, they're doing their wreath-laying ceremony at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning.
I need to point out Jennifer was supposed to be with us today, but her plane was late.
Yep,
so
came a little late.
We'll show her. John?
Yes, sir.
You were what, 6 years old?
6 years old.
In 1938 when they opened the doors?
Yes, sir.
You remember them building it?
Yes, we'd go up there and kind of check it out. They had this, stonemasons up there, and they had the scaffolding and everything. I believe the stone came from a rock quarry down by Catoosa. So
they didn't mind the fact that you kids were down there watching them.
No, well, it's usually on the weekend when wasn't any workers there. You could just drive by. In fact, you could drive up in what is now the parking lot and look it over.
So you were able to see the progress as it was being
Yeah,
made.
of course. I was 6 years old. I didn't realize the impact of the thing. But
were you there when it opened? Did you
I
go
was
to the
there.
opening?
My mother and a sister of hers took me up there the morning it opened in '38.
This was a man who, when he died, the radios went silent worldwide.
Right.
The newspapers carried banner headlines around the world. Never before had that happened, and hadn't happened since.
Right.
To that extent, where broadcast facilities shut her down, where governing bodies call for a moment of silence right then, as soon as word hit. It's one of the most impactful individuals, he had to be, to ever grace our planet. And yet he came from Claremore, Oklahoma, very quietly. Did you know any of the family?
No, I did not know any. The family had an uncle that Andrew Payne was, worked with him on the cattle on the ranch. A lot of old cowboys. In fact, that first parade, and for several years, they had these old cowboys ride in a parade. They'd have a sign, they'd rode or worked with Will Rogers. I'm sure some of them might have just slipped in there that really actually didn't do it, but that group would be in the parade.
Well, I know, was it Frank Phillips that had an agreement with law enforcement? And when he had that big get-together, when the outlaws came, there would be no trouble from the
for that day, they get to come in there free
Come in there and enjoy it.
and eat and have a big time.
Yeah, with Chief Bacon Ryan and all the
Right.
crew. Did you have an opportunity to walk through with your folks and look things over when they first opened up?
I was out in the rotunda, and boy, it was just wall to wall people you can imagine. And the statue that Joe Davison made was covered up, and then they unveiled it, there. Mm-hmm. And I can remember E.W. Marlin, of course, that was the governor when he was, when they dedicated the museum.
It's so ironic to me to watch the coverage out of Washington with all the turmoil that's going on. When they interview people, the majority of the time, those interviews are in Statuary Hall.
Right.
And the majority of the time, Will Rogers is in the shot, in the background, kind of. Well, it's that same statue that we have, here.
Same thing.
And I'm thinking, Will, boy, do we need you now.
Yeah.
Dad, what would he say about all this?
Oh, there's so many of his quotes are still relevant today, and people, we have people that'll send us notification if he's been on MSNBC or in Fox News behind the scenes. They'll send us pictures that Will Rogers was back there. You'll see quotes, different ones that are used periodically in the news. The one that's being used a lot now is, Will Rogers said that the Senate opens with a prayer and closes with an investigation, and you see them investigating everything. So, as we were saying earlier, there is some comfort today of, it may seem a little bit chaotic, but, Will Rogers quotes from 80, 90 years or 90 years ago or more are relevant almost to some of the things that are going on today. So there were some crazy things maybe back then, but, Will, though, did it in such a way that both sides appreciated him. It wasn't this bickering back and forth. Will spoke at the Republican and Democrat conventions. He was respected by both sides of the parties. And like you said earlier, that's why the House and Senate went home for a day and everybody had their moment of silence, because he was a man that affected everybody on both sides.
I remember my granddaddy talking about his radio show. And back then, you had the old Philco or the old Zenith radio to listen to, and some of those were battery-powered units. Right. And they'd bring the batteries in from the tractors and hook the pickup and hook them up to the radio so they could listen to Will Rogers speak. I mean, everybody listened to Will Rogers and his motion pictures. Everybody went to see him.
A lot of people didn't even have a radio in that day and time, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, we didn't have a radio at our house.
You were a teacher, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Where did you, what grade school?
No, I taught at, my last teaching job was at Claremore High School. I was there 27 years.
Did the kids remember Will?
Well, in my history classes, I had I had a great scrapbook, and I go over all that
So you made sure they knew about it?
Oh, yeah. And I would Will Rogers Day, we'd take the whole hour, go over all this, pass all this information out. And we had the program, and I gave Pat Reeder the tickets that it showed permission to get in. Oklahoma Military Academy played football at 3 o'clock against Bryan Academy, Military Academy from Texas. They had a football game that day, part of the dedication.
You should write a book.
No, I don't know about that.
You should write a book. Listen, thank you both for taking time to come in. And I have to confess one thing, and you're going to laugh at me, but every time I walk through the doors of that museum, I get the strangest feeling. And I'm not trying to be, woo, spooky, but I get the strangest feeling I'm being watched. It's almost as though he's around, he's somewhere, and the spirit of the man lives in that area. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you very much. Now, I need to pass on a little something that you folks need to know about. Rogers State University Scientific Field Research Station is going to be dedicated Monday, November 6th. And it's open to the public here on the campus of Rogers State. And urge you to come take a look at it and see what it's all about. Conservation Fund and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have formed a collaborative partnership with Rogers State in the creation of some long-term scientific research. Go see it. That's all the time we have for this edition of Perspectives. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time around.